Hello, my name is Selena, and I'm a part of the Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar team at the Foundation for Inner Peace. The mission of the Foundation for Inner Peace is to publish, distribute, and discuss A Course in Miracles. We are holding these Let's Discuss online webinars as an expression of our vision of extending love through A Course in Miracles teachings. Today, we're holding a question and answer session, and it's coming to you live. Thanks so much to all who registered, submitted questions in advance. For those attending with us live today, if you have questions, be sure to go ahead and submit them into the Q&A feature. So you know we've received so many questions, so we are going to do our best to answer them and work the topics into today's discussion. We are also happy to announce that simultaneous Spanish translation is available for today's webinar. Attendees can listen to Spanish by selecting the interpretation button in the webinar controls and selecting the Spanish channel. For those listening live, we will make sure to paste these instructions in the group chat. Before introducing our guests, I invite you to join in prayer. From the text, chapter 2, A Course in Miracles tells us that we can do much on behalf of our own healing and that of others if we think of our situations in this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Now, it's time for today's Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar. It's been a while since we held a question and answer session, and this time we're taking a different spin on the Q&A. For today's event, we are calling it Ask the Questions, Act the Answers. Many students of A Course in Miracles may agree that sometimes we don't know how to be. However, we can act as guidance teaches us how to be. The more we experience miracles by asking the Holy Spirit, listening, and then performing what we hear to do, the more we settle into that oneness. In today's event, not only will we discuss A Course in Miracles, but we'll feature a few situational improvs and perhaps even a couple of spontaneous songs to demonstrate forgiveness and featured in a way that holds both humor and heartfelt relevance. So without further ado, it's a true pleasure to welcome our guest today. Our Foundation President Tam Morgan is joined by course teachers Dov Fishman, Cindy Lora-Renard, Jackie Lora Jones, and singer-songwriter Scott Grace. Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to you all.
Hello, hello everybody.
Hello, everyone. So glad that you're here. And we have gotten over the years so many questions and answers given back. We have FAQs on our site, and we still keep getting questions upon questions. And I was sharing with our staff that I'm not supposed to say this, but I always do, but getting a little tired of the same questions and the same answers. And so in order to give this and have fun, because my contract with Holy Spirit is I don't want to do this unless it's fun. These webinars, this work, there needs to be spirit involved in it all the time. We took this angle to try and see if we can spontaneously act out some of your questions. Not all of them, but whichever ones were inspired to do. We did a little practice run before this started, just for a quick second, and we had fun. We do not mean in any way to have fun at your expense. That's not what this is about. This is about bringing light and laughter to things that even may be serious. Right now, the world is, as it usually is, in a very difficult place, but particularly now with all sorts of war at hand. And people have asked us to give a commentary on that. We are not a political organization. Everything we do is about looking inward and not perceiving the world as real through forgiveness and oneness. That does not mean we're apathetic to what is going on. But that's why you don't see us making statements right and left about different political things that are going on and taking sides. Our whole focus is about forgiveness. That's what we do. That's what we come to A Course in Miracles for. So in that, even the deepest and most serious questions, we can have some non-attachment to and see how we play out. But please know, we do have compassion for all the struggles that we are each going through. And this whole group here is willing to absolutely look like idiots or fools and flop by trying to play in something we haven't done before. We just found out that Scott Grace, who was joining us, was actually an improv teacher, which suddenly made us all like, he's a teacher of this. We're just trying to play here. Very unprofessionally, but just wanted to share that. Also, if and when we slow down, it's because Vero is here translating to the Spanish-speaking world, and it is going to be very challenging for her to jump in and completely act out different parts as she is translating. So if you see us suddenly slow down, it's because she is giving us a sign that we have forgotten to enunciate, articulate, slow down so that she can translate as well. So that's, I think, most of the disclaimers I have for today's group. We've made it a longer webinar so we can try and get to more questions and answers than we usually do at the end of our webinars, where we get so engaged in talking, we forget to actually get to the questions and answers. So with that said, I'm going to turn to Selena to give us the first question.
Okay, very good. So let me give it to you like this. So let's say here's someone who had a question about family. If a close family member, such as a sibling, is repeatedly abusive towards me, does my refusal to socialize with them mean that I have chosen not to forgive them? There's a question there, but there might be an improv.
We happen to have two siblings here, and I'm going to leave it to the audience to guess who those are. I invite them to act this one out, and any of the rest of us can comment, join in. I'm happy to be a step sibling and jump in. So if you two, who know who you are as our siblings, want to begin this, go for it.
Okay. I'll go. Okay. Yeah. Well, I really feel mistreated by you. And I feel, Cindy, that you don't understand me. You don't consider me. My feelings are not valid to you. And I'm just really upset. And I want to know why our relationship has taken this turn. I'm just unhappy about it.
I don't even understand what you're saying. I mean,
Typical.
You're the one that feels victimized, or you're the one that feels upset. Do you have any idea what I'm going through?
Well, it's always about you, right? First of all, it's always about you.
I don't think it's about me. I think it's about you. I think that's the problem.
All right, we can agree to disagree on that.
Ooh, I'm jumping in as your mom. I know both of your mothers, same person. And aren't you course students and course teachers? And this is where you're falling into this place. Can we stop for a moment and see how to deal with this? Even if one of you wasn't, how would the one that was actually stop and see this?
Yes. Well, I'll start. It's interesting how sometimes when you have the course principles in your mind, you guys, something will just come out and you find yourself in an argument, right? Oftentimes I'm kind of observing that argument. And I always try to give the situation over to the Holy Spirit. What I mean by that is I would like to perceive correctly. I'm projecting my anger onto Cindy, my sister, right now, but I know that I'm never really upset for the way I'm never upset for the reason that I think. So in my mind, you guys, simultaneously, as I'm looking at her, I'm going to remember that. And I'm going to remember to go back to the cause and recognize in my mind that I can choose the Holy Spirit and see peace for the rest of the conversation. To the question's point, to the point of the question, it does not mean that you haven't forgiven if you decide that socially you can't be with someone. We just can't be with people on the level of form all the time. And there's so many little things that are just different, but the course is all about joining in the mind, you guys. So at the mind level, I wouldn't see Cindy as any different than me. I would see her calling for help. I would see myself calling for help, calling for love. But at the mind level, I would be able to interpret that this is my dream and oh my goodness, look at what I've lashed out now. Okay. If there's something to be resolved between the siblings, your Holy Spirit is your best teacher, because then you're going to come from that content of love in your mind instead of coming from the ego, which always separates. And you will be inspired as to what to think and say, right? But we can't always hang out with everybody, and it doesn't mean you didn't forgive, right? You can forgive and just you've grown apart, or form is not what matters. It's always how you're joining in the mind and how you're thinking of the other person, and that will play out into all your functioning of what you do in the world.
So part of what I find helpful with my siblings, with my friends, with anyone, is to, as I remember that, to stop. So Cindy, how would you continue acting this out when you suddenly remembered, oh, the course?
Well, you made a good point, is that you have to catch yourself when you're in that mode of feeling victimized or unfairly treated. You have to catch it. So once you do catch it, sometimes, in all honesty, it might not always be easy to just make that switch, right away, because maybe you've already gotten yourself into a bit of a spiral. But I'll give this scenario. So let's say you do catch it and you do remember. What I like to do in my experience, in my practice, what has helped me is to remember that my sibling there's only two forms of expression, would be calling out for love. You're expressing love or calling out for it. So after I stop myself and catch myself, I remember, okay, she's calling out for love. So the proper response in some way, whatever the guidance is, would be love, would be the response.
Let's see what you would do.
What would I do?
Yeah, let's see to Jackie right now, from this scenario that you were stopped in the middle of. Now that you remember, what would you say to her while you were in this heated discussion with her?
Jackie, I can understand. You know what? I can understand how you might be feeling. We're not different. And I made a mistake in the moment, because I chose the wrong teacher in this moment. I was listening to my ego, and I was seeing you as an ego instead of remembering for both of us who we really are. So I want to take responsibility for myself choosing my wrong mind. And I want to create a win-win situation where we remember that our interests are the same. And are you willing to do that with me? Because I admit that I was listening to the wrong teacher. So that was the only thing I was able to perceive in this moment. Are you willing to find another way? Let's look at this another way. Can we come together and come to an understanding, knowing that maybe in this moment we were both calling for love? And what do you say about that? Are you willing? Because I love you, and I only want what's best for the highest good of all concerned, but I don't even know what that is. But let's join with the Holy Spirit. Let's join with the Holy Spirit and ask that we perceive ourselves with shared interests instead of trying to be divisive. Let's even hear each other out and let each other speak from the most honest place that we can. How do you feel
Jackie,
about
do you
that?
feel lectured?
You know what, Cindy? I feel like that's a great example. That's a great way to look at it. You know, I'm still upset because I just feel like I just haven't, I don't know if I can really even explain myself, but I'm listening to what you said and the energy with which you said it. I do want to join with you. If you just give me a little bit of time, I'm willing to do it. Just be with me where I am. And you know, I love you. And I was in my ego too. I'm coming around. But I don't want to deny my feelings. And thank you for not judging me. And thank you for holding the space. I appreciate that.
A little willingness is all we're asked for. And thank you,
Right.
Jackie, for showing us a little willingness. I'm a very proud mother of the two of you.
Thank you, Mama. Mama
Thank
Tam.
you, Mama.
Dov wants to join in here.
Yeah, I love the sharing that you just did. I'll tell you what I do in my own life. I use lesson 25 as my mantra lesson for 20 years, because when you're in your wrong mind, you really don't know what anything is for. And lesson 25 says, I don't know what anything is for. It kind of takes me off the hook of listening to the ego and saying, you go to Holy Spirit and say, what is this for? Ask of all things of this world. You don't know what it's for. And basically, the underlying thing of what it's for is something that's triggering you because it's revealing some mistaken belief that you have. That's why you're in your wrong mind. So by saying, I do not know what this is for, you're actually asking to see it differently. Above all else, I'm determined to see it differently. Yeah. So it's my own willingness to ask Spirit, what is this for?
Thank you. And just to be
Nice.
very specific to this person's question, they've asked, does my refusal to socialize with the abusive sibling mean that I have chosen not to forgive them? And we didn't act that out in that scenario, so we got a little sidetracked. But it does not mean that. It means you're creating a boundary for yourself that you can hold the love and not put yourself in a situation because you're not ready to completely see them as yourself. You're protecting yourself. And sometimes we do need to have that boundary if it's exceptionally abusive, certainly physically abusive, and to have that person see that you're not going to accept that behavior, but you're still going to be able to find love and hopefully forgiveness, that this isn't even really happening. We're all playing roles. Which reminds me, happy Halloween. Talk about we can all, we're all here wearing costumes. We did a podcast this morning about that, of, you know, not believing in the costume that you wear. It's a big play here. So if you can separate and be non-attached, you can see that, but you can also choose to not participate in that game. So that's an answer to this. Scott, what do you say or sing to this?
Well, I would say that sometimes, absolutely, even before forgiveness, we need to remove ourselves from the scene of the crime, so to speak, where your nervous system keeps getting triggered, and from a safe distance where you're no longer being constantly triggered, you can connect with the Holy Spirit and feel safe, and then send that person love. Does that mean you need to take them out to lunch? No way, Jose. So many of us, whatever you call us, teachers of God, just cast our pearls before swine. I don't know, that was a long time ago, but I would say like we open our hearts and try to love everybody and accept everybody, and we get drained and wonder why we're not doing the forgiveness work properly. Maybe we're just not choosing the people wisely who we hang out with. So, no, you don't have to take them out to lunch. Even if they're a sibling, you don't have to munch. You don't have to be unconditional with them. You can take your distance and be born again. You can forgive from a distance. Let go of your resistance and ask for God's assistance in opening your heart. You can forgive from a distance. Ask for assistance. Let go of your resistance to love.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think that brings us right into we don't have to act out everyone, but someone asked, I would like to know how to forgive someone whom I helped a lot, and that person ended up scamming my money. How do I forgive them? Anyone want to jump in?
I'll take it.
Go for it.
Well, that actually happened to me. I mean, I've been scammed a few times. In fact, just this past week, I asked, why are these things happening to me? And, on my card, it actually says, be grateful for your triggers, things that trigger you, because they reveal your mistaken beliefs. And every belief has an LIE in the center. And, I sometimes see myself as angelic and, I would never do such things. But on the other hand, the word scam is a modern word, but Jesus uses in the Course the word deception. He uses it a lot. And he says the world was made by deception. So, the idea of losing money, which I call the quantitative side of things, has nothing to do with the qualitative side of things, that he really is my brother. And if I'm going to be hurt by something that has to do with things of this world, I'm just talking about my own deception, my own denial of my equality Father who sees me as himself. So if I see myself as separate, that is deception. That, the Course calls it a sin. And there's guilt involved, and guilt demands punishment. And you might say, well, I'm so good, why these things happen to me? It's sort of like that book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? It happens. Can I accept it? If I can't accept it, I'm still back in the lie. He tells you, my favorite paragraph in the Course, lesson 135, paragraph 18, what can you not accept if you but knew that everything that seems to happen, all events, including being scammed, is planned for you by one whose only purpose is your good. So if I'm accepting it, there is an equality there, or a quality. If I can't accept it, I'm into the ego's mindset, which is quantity. I'm losing money. Okay, that's it.
I'd love to add to that two things. I always ask, when we say, why is this happening to me? I shifted to, why is this happening for me? And it shifts the victim mentality to, what is this for? What is this for? How do I bring this to remember who I really am? And the other thing I want to say very quickly is that thanks to the web edition and our search function, yes, deception does show up 53 times in A Course in Miracles. So you can look it up and see all the different ways in how deception plays a part there. And I think it will help with your answer as well. Anyone else on this one?
I'd love to jump in and say too, I see things like this as an opportunity, a true opportunity to look inside myself and say, what is it that I think that I've lost? If I feel upset about something, that upset was already there in my mind. That person just brought out what was already there. So it looks like as if somebody is coming at me, right, and does something. And then my reaction, if I get upset, it must mean that I'm not upset for the reason I think, because that upset is already there. And when I take a moment to remember one of my favorite lines in the course, that the secret of salvation is but this, that I'm doing this to myself. If I feel triggered or upset by something seemingly outside of me, I have to take responsibility then for my part, which means just how I'm perceiving. I'm not responsible for that person's behavior and what they do, but what I am responsible for is how I'm thinking about it. Am I choosing the right-minded teacher, or am I choosing the ego? And that's going to make all the difference in my experience. If I choose the teacher of upset, which is the ego, I'm going to feel unfairly treated. I'm going to maintain the upset and think and give my power away, which is saying I'm giving power to a person who's not really there. It's my projection, but my ego's using for the purpose of making that person guilty so I can be the innocent one. So that would be part of my practice of how I look at these kinds of situations.
I
Taking
will
full responsibility.
jump in to add to that because I've certainly been scammed before. And where I go with it, instead of the guilt or me feeling like an idiot or being angry with that person, each time it's happened, and it's happened a few times in my life, I stop and I hear that that person needed the money more than I did. So when I make the money less important and realizing a call for help, that doesn't mean I condone, in the world of form what was done, but I feel like in some way we were supposed to meet each other and that person was supposed to get this exchange, and I was supposed to get a learning from it. And so it lifts the heaviness of blame and shame and victimization off of it to this. I don't know this person's story. And if I sat and heard what would bring them to that place of doing that in the world of form, usually I would get very compassionate and just probably hand them the money and more.
Just
Not
one
to
quick
invite
thing.
scamming, that's different.
One quick thing, and then Jackie, I know you were going to say something. I just Tam just reminded me. I just wanted to bounce that that Gary, a couple years ago, I'll make this very brief, was paid for an event, and it was a good amount of money. He worked hard for it, but it was a good amount of money. He mistakenly put his money, a good size money, in his bag at the airport, the checked bag. And when I came to pick him up at the airport, he gets his bag back. He looks in his bag and all the money was gone. It was stolen. And I watched him. We both had just an initial quick reaction of like, oh, we had lost something important. And then something interesting happened. I said, Gary, and Gary too, just was like, for a minute, he had the F word. And then I said, you know what, let's come down to the bench here and sit down for a moment. I said, let's call in the Holy Spirit. And together we sat there and held hands and asked the Holy Spirit to help us to perceive this differently. And remember just what you said, Tam, that maybe that person needed it more than we did. Mm-hmm. And we sat there, and what could have taken days, weeks, even months because of the situation to forgive, as soon as we called in the Holy Spirit for help, it just evened out. And we said that person, we blessed the person for, and then went on our way. I just wanted to throw that in there because it seemed relevant to your comment. Yeah.
Jackie, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I remember that, Sin. I remember that scenario.
Yeah.
And everyone has really answered this question beautifully. The only thing I'll add is that when Mark and I were scammed from a tenant, $30,000 later in a damaged house and that needed fixing, through the whole process, what I want to share with you all is, and I think Dov mentioned it, everybody's mentioned it, we don't know what anything is for. Mark and I were like, you know what? Yeah, the ego, this is for, oh my gosh, and how can someone do this? And I would never treat someone that I would never steal, right? When we back up the lens and we recognize, wait, this is our dream here. I don't know what anything is for, except for the one function that the Course tells me is forgiveness, right? And so Mark and I would sit with it and we just did what we thought was best in that scenario at the time. And guess what? It didn't even have anything to do with the form of anything. We were saying, how can I be at peace regardless of all this stuff going on? And when we came back to peace, it was so much easier to intuitively, right, know what to do and let that flow. So it is always really powerful. And Cindy was saying, we sat down and we said, let's look at this. And it really is powerful when we have the courage, you guys, to say, all right, I don't know what anything is for. I know what the ego thinks it's for, but I do want to have peace. We're on an awakening journey here. Doesn't mean the person's behavior was right, but you have to seeing the interest of their calling for help, like we're calling for help. Sometimes people call for help in wild ways. So what Jesus was able to do was to look past that and see our shared fear with the ego, and then also see our shared opportunity to choose the Holy Spirit, which how do you know you're not reminding a mind when you're doing that and behaving, non-judgmentally? It goes out into the hologram. There's only two choices. So when you choose forgiveness, it goes out to the entire hologram because you're one with it. Right?
Ah,
Who, me?
who you? Shall we move it along?
Shall we move it along? I'd be happy to do a song, or we can move it along, but I think it's been said so beautifully by so many of us that I don't know if I could add to it.
Oh, you can always add to it, Scott.
That's right.
When you think you have been scammed and your ego says damn, remember there's a plan and you don't understand. Maybe that person needed your help, and that was the way it was in love.
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
love it.
Love it.
Selena, do you want to give us a live question? Is there one out there yet?
I do have another question to give. Just to remind our attendees, definitely submit your questions in live, but how about this one? Okay, so someone asks, how do I respond to my spouse's or partner's unwillingness to forgive a situation while maintaining my own lessons in forgiveness? So a partner who doesn't want to forgive, but a student who is mindful of it.
Ooh, I'll be the partner who doesn't want to forgive. Anyone want to jump in? Dov.
Yeah, well, there's that chapter 8, section 3. It's called the holy encounter. And it says every encounter is a holy encounter. As you see this person, you're going to see yourself. As you treat this person, you're going to treat yourself. As you think of this person, you're going to think of yourself. So you're really always speaking about yourself. I used to say you can write that on my tombstone. No matter who I'm speaking of, whether it's my partner or somebody else, however I see this person, I'm really seeing myself. So if I see this person as being resistant, I know that's not going to get them anywhere, and I put some importance into it, I'm resistant too, you know. So I can literally say, listen, I love you, not too different than Amama Shivaya, which is basically Ho'oponopono, but basically, and you know, I love you, thank you, I was mistaken, I forgive you, you know, and you literally just let it go.
Dov, I find that very condescending, and I cannot forgive that. And I think it's very annoying that you are saying that while you've done some things that I really can't forgive.
Oh,
Easy for you to say, oh, it's your perception and it's not me, I'm here loving you. But actually, you did a couple of things that really weren't very kind at all, and you're taking no responsibility for it and just stepping in and saying that you're seeing me in love. Well, I'm really annoyed with a couple of the things that you did.
I truly apologize. Truly, I love you. I apologize.
What are you apologizing for? Do you know what you did? Do you understand what you did, or are you just blanket apologizing to me to stop me from being so annoyed?
Yeah, I guess I saw I was not in my right mind, and now that you're pointing it out to me, I'm willing to see it differently. You know, I'm willing to see it differently, and I apologize for the past.
Wow, thank you. That kind of stops me in my tracks a little. I'm still annoyed. It's
Okay.
so hard to forgive, but thank you for hearing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you just didn't do a spiritual override to me, because I don't like that. And I like when you also can deal with the world of form and see that actually hurt. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear.
May I jump in?
Please.
I think it's wonderful that acting out, because it also shows that we need to meet people also where they are. We can't always jump from feeling bad to just all of a sudden way up here in a state of bliss. We kind of need to take it sometimes thought by thought, step by step, and to be able to sit down and ask your loved one, your partner, your friend, coworker, whoever it is, and ask again, are you willing to sit down and just have an open conversation? Let's hear what we have to say. Let's allow each other the opportunity to speak. And then it's the person's responsibility who's the most aware at the time of forgiveness to be the one to forgive. The one that has that awareness and that moment could be the one to step up and not tell the other person necessarily they're forgiving them, but just in their mind, you can still practice seeing that person with spiritual sight, with true vision, understanding again that other person is calling for love, and they must need to be heard. They need to be validated. And so it's sort of about, again, seeing shared interests with the other person. And maybe that person just needs that, not to be told what to do, how to behave, how to be, but maybe our role is to just listen without judgment, let go of all judgment of the situation, and just be able to listen, whether you agree with the person or not. You're just there or in a way, like you become a neutral observer of it. Because when you're a neutral observer, then you're in the position to be able to say, oh, I remember too now that I have a right mind and wrong mind, that I can choose how I'm perceiving this. So that's not always easy to do. I'm not saying that's easy in the moment all the time, but the person who's most aware at the time could step forward, at least in their mind, and start thinking, changing their mind about the situation. That's one, way of being in a situation like this and remaining in your center. And then later, since there's no time's an illusion, you could bring up that scenario later on if you felt triggered by it and reenact it in your mind and still forgive it, because you can forgive there's no time. Forgiveness will be just as powerful if we even have to wait to forgive, if we can't do it in the moment. Because forgiveness, the miracle works in all dimensions of time, and it works all the time. And so whenever we're ready, we can forgive. We can always bring that situation up if we can't do it in the moment for whatever reason. We don't have to beat ourselves up about it or feel guilty about it or bad about it, but just instead replace that with compassion for the self, non-judgment for the self, and ask Jesus or the Holy Spirit for help.
And Cindy, that kind of segues into our last webinar, which is forgive, but don't forget. Do we forgive and forget? Lots of people say, I can forgive, but I can't forget. And in the world of form, not forgetting can be a helpful thing. Remember the Holocaust, remember this so that it doesn't happen again. Remember that. I forgive you, but I won't forget the situation because I got a learning from that, or I need to not forget it. But we don't want to mix levels. So it's okay to not forget in a certain way, but when you get deeper and deeper into course practice, you do forget, because none of this happened in the first place. And that's where you get to a deeper point in this. Oh, Dov's excited. Go ahead, Dov. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, actually, I'm a student of Kenny Wapnick, and Ken always sets it up the same way. He says, listen, you're not really forgiving this other person. The forgiveness of the Course in Miracles is not forgiving to destroy, which Song of Prayer talks about. He says, don't look at it the way you set it up, the way the movie looks. Look at it the way it really is. I'm really forgiving myself. And if I can forgive myself, I can certainly include my brother as myself, because that inclusion really is accepting the atonement, that the separation never really happened. But in this world, we set it up so somebody outside of me appears to be the culprit, and I have to, bend over backwards to try and forgive. No, you're not forgiving anybody. You're forgiving yourself. Yeah, forgiveness is the one gift I truly want. And it's the one gift I truly give.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. I would just add to Dov and Cindy too. It's interesting because people talk about what do you do on the level of form or whatever. Well, when Mark and I had our arguing years in the early days of our marriage, it's arguments. He had come back from the war. There was a lot of PTSD things going on, and we would have arguments, and we planned to say, okay, you know what? I'm at capacity right now. Just letting you know, I'm not against you. I'm not doing anything. Our clue was always, I'm at capacity right now, and we would do that. And when he would get really upset about something, and to Dov's point, it always comes back to you. I remembered, and this is with the practice of the Course, as you start to undo the ego mind, you remember that that's a split off fragment of the one mind. That's a part of my mind that I see out there that's calling for love. I want to integrate that back into the whole, right? So we can forgive it because we're really forgiving ourselves. We're forgiving the other. We're forgiving ourselves. We're ending up being in peace because we're remembering, oh my gosh, this is my dream. And then on the level of form, I'm always inspired as what to do to address a certain thing, like what Mark and I will say. And to Cindy's point too, it's almost like people sometimes just want to be heard. And they don't want solutions. Sometimes I'll get a ping in my mind about just listening. Don't say anything, And then I have a really good idea to help him with. And he'll say, what would you do about that? I really want your opinion this time. And I just smile because I was silent. And then I got this little ping that there might be something helpful, but the ego wants to dive in, but I didn't. And then he came back. So my point is when you really can listen to the guidance on it, when you join with the wholeness of who we really are, everybody, you'll know what to do in form. And it'll look different in every situation. Or it could look the same. but it often looks different. But the point is, you'll feel like you're not the one doing the doing. It's just kind of being done through you, you know?
Okay, I love that Scott keeps coming to round it up.
That's right.
What was the original question?
I forgave and forgot.
You forgave and forgot the original question?
Yeah. What was it? Selena, where was the question? We acted it out. If a spouse or yeah, go ahead. No, I
Yes,
do
yes.
remember.
So spouse or partner, their unwillingness to forgive while maintaining my own lessons of forgiveness.
I don't need you to change, so I can be at peace. This thought that you must forgive, I am willing now to release. You are my best teacher by refusing to forgive, giving me the opportunity to let go and let you live.
Thank you.
May I say one more thing
Of course.
about that, since I just reheard the question at the beginning?
Mhm.
You know, it's so interesting. We're always in situations where another person is unwilling to forgive, like the spouse, like the person was asking. What is always helpful to me is that I silently in my mind, I don't have to change anything except for my perception about the person. Yes, it's always nice if you practice forgiveness and then inform. The Holy Instant manifests in form, and they behave like you want and everything. But if you see it as a little frightened self, and that person is just like you are when you're afraid of something, your goal is different. What is the purpose of this? The purpose is not to change them or make them see it my way, or I wish they could just forgive, but to change your mind about what's really going on, which is the problem is that when we want to change something, we've chosen the ego as our teacher because it's making it really real to our mind, and we're enforcing exactly what we don't want, and then it snowballs, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we've moved to a question that says, what if we aren't triggered, but we are seeing our brothers and sisters hurting or angry, and we feel compassion towards them? Do we forgive them for their false beliefs? I have just one sentence. No, we forgive ourselves for our false beliefs in seeing their condition as such. When we look at, I always refer to Jesus and the person who was crippled and couldn't walk. And he didn't say, tell me your story. I feel so bad for you. Oh my gosh, you're in such a bad place where you can't walk, and now let's heal you. He just saw him as whole and said, walk. There wasn't the intermediary. It was so full of compassion and love, but it was like, walk. We don't need the story. I see you in love. I see you as whole. I see you as complete and God's son. So that would be my answer to that. Anyone want to add?
Yes, because you, right in that moment, that was exactly my thought is too with you, Tam, is that you practice seeing that person as whole. In other words, I love this, another line from the Course. I always remember this. When Jesus says, you heal your brothers by perceiving only the sanity in them. So it's the way you're seeing them that matters, not even how they're seeing you. Because if you're in your right mind, you would be seeing them with correct perception and seeing their wholeness, their innocence, their light. They are exactly as God created them. That hasn't shifted or changed. And if I'm in that place in my right mind, that's what heals. That's healing. It's not like I have to do something, say something specific to the person, or, physically do something. It's It's how I'm thinking about it again, how I'm perceiving it. And when I see their wholeness, and also I might remember too that there's really, again, if we're really coming back to that uncompromising nature of the Course, if this person's part of my dream, part of my projection, they're not even really there. I made this up. So it's my role to now be a decision maker here. Say, what do I choose? What do I decide? How do I decide to look at this projection, this figure in my dream that I'm dreaming? And I remember, okay, I'm dreaming this up. And sometimes when I remember that for myself, that it's always my dream, just like I'm dreams in bed at night. The form of the dream looks different. It seems more real when we're here in the physical awake, but it's still a form of dreaming. And we're making the figures act out for us. So as soon as I remember that, then I can remember seeing that person the way I would, the way that I'm seen by God, that all of us, have retained our innocence and haven't lost it because we've never left home. We've never left God. So I just wanted to add that too. Yeah.
What was the original question, Selena? I know I had something to say about
That
it.
one was, what if we are triggered, but we are seeing our brothers and sisters hurting or angry and we feel compassion towards them? Do we forgive them for their false beliefs?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because we know whenever people are triggered, they're in their ego mind, right? Which is really us in our ego mind, to Sin's point. So we're always going back to it comes back to the self, which I know Dov has said many times. And when you go back to cause, it's so powerful to remember this is a course in cause and not effect. You can go back and change your mind about how you're perceiving. And when you perceive truly, you're automatically given what to do in each scenario, because kindness leads, love leads. Doesn't mean that what you do is loving, like it might be tough love or something for a child, right? But it's coming from that part of your mind where you're joining and you know what's really going on, and the effect can play out through you. And that's really powerful.
That's well said. Thank you, Jackie.
Anything to add, Scott? Like a song?
Scott.
I know I try never to say no when people ask me for a song.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So you know what? Just for fun, Cindy, why don't you give me the first line in the song?
The first line of the song.
Yeah, and then your sister gives me the last line.
Okay.
Please let me recognize there is nothing to forgive.
Beautiful. And what's the last line?
I can see clearly now. I forgive you.
Okay. Could you put that in the chat so I can look at it, because I'm going to forget that one. But the first one was, please let me recognize there's nothing to forgive, right? Was that right?
Yes.
Please let me recognize there's nothing to forgive, and stay in my own business. Nobody is wrong. They're all doing their best, and everyone's insane. So let me not see them as stuck in their own pain. We're all waking up together. There's nothing to forgive. It's all beautiful weather when we rise above the clouds. The sun is always out, and I forgot. Oh, no, I didn't forget. Here it is. I can see clearly now. I can see clear.
Yay!
There was irony to that of please let me recognize there's nothing to forgive, and then I can see clearly now I forgive you. And that is bringing two levels together. So we do use forgiveness on the path to awakening to realize that there is nothing to forgive. So thank
Yes.
I would call that whole process, my title for your song is Oops.
That's great.
Selena, what do we got
Okay.
going?
We have a lot of questions coming in. We have questions about the script, the illusion, but I'm going to take one that came in through the Q&A. So the question is this, and then there's a little background. How can I forgive my guilt from my own past actions that do not align with my current values? So I had a challenging upbringing. I'm not trying to play the victim here, and have learned my lessons the hard way. I'm a completely different person now, and I find it difficult to remove the blocks of my own guilt. I find it easier to forgive others in the illusion. This is a big block to love's presence for me, and any advice is greatly appreciated. Again, the question, how can I forgive my guilt from my own past actions that do not align with my current values?
Dov is excited. Go for it, Dov.
Well, the whole course is about the guilt is not real. I am the holy, innocent, guiltless Son of God. So the course is not about your behavior. We've all done things in our past life that you feel guilty about. And if that's what the ego is reminding you of, there's not going to be any peace. And you're always going to feel that you haven't done enough to overcome what you did in the past. But that's seeing the past. Right now, in this holy instant of right now, there is nothing but the holy, innocent Son of God. That's all there is. And I love that question in the course where he says, are you willing to see your brother innocent, guiltless? So if you're willing to see your brother innocent, you must be willing to see yourself guiltless and innocent. If you think of your behavior, which only the ego thinks of, you're never going to be free of the guilt. But Jesus is not talking about behavior. He's not talking about the body. He's talking about the holy Son of God that we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I would just add something quickly to that beautiful thing that Dov was saying. And, the ego can't survive without a past, right? So the course teaches that the past is gone. So whenever I think of something that I've done in the past that I think I never would have done that, I never would have dated that person, I never would have, that's so weird. It is. I know what you mean. Whoever asked the question, it can just be so different, right? And to tail on Dov's point there, it's just remember, right? We're watching our movie here. When I remember that I'm watching a movie and I was watching the movie of Jackie at age whatever, when I did this, I just remember the present moment is the moment that I can find peace, right? Now, if you're feeling like you like your life in the present and you're happy with everything, the ego has to pull from somewhere. It has to either pull from the past and drag it in, or it has to fear the future, right? Everything to keep you out of the present. So if you can just remember that you're innocent and you're loved, some of the things I say to myself if these memories come up of something is, okay, there is another way of seeing this. I wouldn't have done that now. I understand that. But this is my dream, right? And I am willing to forgive myself. I'm willing to forgive that part, right? That I felt like I had done something that I didn't really do. And this is where the course, it takes great vigilance, because everyone's like, no, I did it. My friends witnessed it and everybody did it. Right. In the dream, in the movie. Remember, the ego has to take your unconscious guilt and it has to project it out, right? So it's going to pull from anything, your memories, your this or your that. But what if you recognize this was a hallucination? What if you recognize that things were wholly untrue? After you swallow that and go, oh, but it feels like I'm in denial, then you can say, well, the proper use of denial is denying the ego's thought system, denying that, right? In favor of, I just remember that I'm innocent. And sometimes the Holy Spirit gives me these nice thoughts like, it's not really as bad as you think it is. You're so hard on yourself. Oh my goodness, the reflection of that is, you don't even, people don't even, they're so consumed with their own thing. I mean, literally, you could get these things where you're your own worst critic. So when that guilt comes up, just have that gentle smile and remember that you're innocent, right? And that you're watching a movie. And the more you remember that you're watching the movie, you strengthen that part of your mind that's able to recall a memory like that. And it would just be like a fly landed on your hand and you just kind of go, oh, all right, what's for dinner? Okay. That's the meaning it'll have for you, right? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. I'd love to comment too on this. This is a good one.
Yeah, so much could be said about that.
because
Oh my God.
the whole world is based on the past. The entire experience here is based on the past until we decide that we can use memory for a different purpose. And this is why I love that section in the course called the present memory, which teaches us how we can use memory to remember our reality now. And because there's time's an illusion, there's only now. So as Jackie said, we do drag things from the past into the present. But then what we want to do, I think, is recognize when we do that and go, well, how is this serving me? There must be something I think this is bringing me to keep replaying the past and bringing it into to my now, to the present. So if we can just not analyze to death, right? Not analyze everything, but look, as the course says, look at all the ways in which we cling to the past and keep reliving it in the now. And because there must be something of benefit we think it's bringing us, or we would just let it go. So I like to review that section, present memory, because it always reminds me that the only time is now. Even something we perceive as having happened in the past, it's all happening right now. As long as you're reliving it, you're still bringing it into your space. So you can forgive that now. You can forgive something from the past right here in this moment. You can forgive a projection from the future that you might fear something about the future. You can forgive it right in this moment, because that's where our power is. Right here, right now in this very space. It's all the time there is. So I like to stop myself, and I do my best to catch myself when I'm trying that ego game of dragging the past into the present. I've had to work very hard at that because there's, memories that I've had that is easy for me to drag into the present. So the sooner I catch it, the sooner I can change my mind about it and go, oh, okay, let me investigate. Okay, I see what the ego's doing. And it wants me to hold on to this because that's the way it's saying, see, I'm real. This is the way it survives. And that instead of the Holy Spirit or God being alive in me now, the ego is what's alive and real. And so that's how I kind of practice that, is to go, what benefit is this bringing me to keep reliving this?
Yeah, but that's so easy for you to say. You guys are such great teachers and you know the course, and I can't articulate that nearly as clearly as you. And you're all amazing and I can see the light in you, but I just suck at all of this course stuff. And I'm trying, but I can't quite get it. And are you saying that I actually have to see myself as I see you, because I'm not criticizing you and I certainly love you? Do I have to do that? I just need a yes or no answer for a moment.
No.
No.
I don't have to see myself as you,
No.
who I love.
Nope. You don't
What
have
do I have to see myself as?
you don't have to be perfect, and that's not, none of us are perfect here in form. You do not have to be perfect or try to play the role of having everything figured out as if you know everything.
So
That-
when I embrace that, there's a joke. It's all a joke. And it brings in the light, the laughter. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to judge myself. I don't have to hold myself to standards that you guys, that I hold you to. I can just love myself. That's funny.
Yes.
That's where spirit comes in. If it's not funny, if it's not fun, we are caught in the wrong mind. And if we are judging ourselves that heavily and seriously, and everyone else is better than I am, we're not in the right mind. And
That's
when
right.
we're not in the right mind, the thing that we do is stop, recognize it, and shift over. And if that's hard, we ask for help, because it's Holy Spirit that actually does the work of forgiveness. You just have to bring that darkness to the light, and then just share it with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, however you want to see it. Share that darkness of yourself, and it can no longer exist, because Holy Spirit will take it and transform it for us. And that's the gift of all of this.
You-
What do you have to say about that, Scott? What do you have to sing about that, Scott?
That's a good question. You know, I think it was you that said to me, that song you just did, Scott, for the last question could be called Oops. And the fact is, I already have a song called Oops, and it's perfect for this question. So here it
Great.
comes.
A prepared song.
So unlike me. Um, well, you rehearsed your lines a couple thousand times, had them perfectly memorized. Then on opening night you were filled with fright and laughed when you should have cried. You thought you were doomed to eternal gloom, and your inside started to shake. Well, I got news for you, we've all made them too. Oops, you made a mistake. Oops, you made a mistake. And you're beautiful, yes, you're beautiful. Oops, you made a mistake. And you're beautiful to God. You're beautiful to God. Now, there's many mistakes in that song. There's like 4 verses. I'm just going to keep it a homeopathic dosage so we can continue with the seminar, the
Well,
webinar.
it's the irony when we really do embrace and hear spirit is that there is always irony. Like in the course, oops, I made a mistake, and there are no mistakes. How do you bring those together? And again, we don't want to mix levels here, but so the oops becomes funnier and funnier and funnier as the two incongruous minds are there, even though they're not. There's only one. So we have to keep going back to the one. There's a question that's come up that is this: understanding that all minds are connected and the Holy Spirit is the voice for God, the source from which all arises, how can it be that God knows nothing of our dream world as well? A hard one to act out.
That's hard to act out. That's
That's a
Can act
deep
that one out.
question.
Right.
Who would like to start with that one?
I'll start. Oh, no, Dov, go ahead.
Go ahead, Cindy. Go ahead.
You
Go.
go, Cindy, go ahead.
Okay. Well, God being absolute reality, absolute perfect love means that it doesn't change, it doesn't shift, doesn't take on a form, doesn't make mistakes. It's just abstract reality, awareness of perfect love. So the Course explains that if a God were to acknowledge a dream of separation, he would be just as insane as we are. In other words, it's insanity to perceive ourselves as being separate from our source, who remains perfect love and has never shifted or changed. So this is why, and it's hard to wrap, in other words, this is really an experience that we all come to, that it's hard for an ego mind to wrap our ego minds around this concept that there's only God and nothing else. But just by the definition that there's only God, as the Course speaks of, it's making a clear distinction between reality and illusions. If God would be insane to acknowledge something that doesn't exist. So that's accepting the atonement. What that really means in the Course is that that's the practice, in other words, that takes, it's a process to practice this, but to practice that idea of accepting the atonement, which means we just read gently and lovingly and playfully, reminding ourselves that nothing really happened. I never really did separate from God's love. And if I never separated from God's love, not one note in heaven's song was missed just because of this tiny mad idea, then God remains perfect love. And so a God like that wouldn't need to acknowledge something that is a hallucination that doesn't exist. And another quick analogy would be like a parent with their child. The parent being God in this scenario, but think of a parent seeing that their child is dreaming and dreaming in bed at night, and they're twisting and turning, and they're having what looks like a nightmare. And the parent knows that what that child is seeing doesn't exist because it's just happening. They're making it up in their mind and it doesn't exist. They're really safe at home in the bed. They never left the bed, but they might be off having all these adventures. They might be off in a war. They might be having their body is just being killed. They might, but they're dreaming. They're dreaming. And it's like the Holy Spirit's just saying, you're only having a dream, but it's not true. So it doesn't exist. You made it up. So it's sort of a metaphor for God would have nothing, wouldn't even be able to see our dreams or illusions because they don't exist. And what doesn't exist means that it can't have any impact on the complete abstract oneness of perfect love. And you can't really put this into words. I'm just doing this. This is really more an experience that I know that we're all going to have once we have true understanding. Once we awaken from the dream of separation, there'll be no more questions. The questions will disappear and we'll just have knowledge. That's when true knowledge returns to us, that true communication of God and his Son. In other words, that simultaneous connection of that there's just only perfect oneness. But that's an experience, really. It's like revelation. You can't really put it into words, but we do the best we can sometimes.
It's a great analogy. Thank you. I thought it was very articulate.
Yeah.
What, Dov, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to say that was perfectly shared, Cindy. That was absolutely true, everything that you said. And yeah, it's like if God knew of our dream, it wouldn't be a dream. So a lot of course people say, you mean God doesn't even know of my existence, of my prayers? Why am I praying? Which brings up something that I just found out in the last Jewish holiday. You know, I spent all these Jewish holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the word Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year, means the Day of Atonement. And I saw something for the first time I mean, that's probably why I'm sharing it here. For the very first time, in the Jewish religion, you pray for God to grant you atonement, and the word "grant" is right in the service. You know, God grant me atonement, and the Ovinu Malkeinu, which is our Father, our King, please forgive me. And you name 40 things, and everyone does it together, so no one knows who did what, and all the things that could have that could be guilty, and you're asking for atonement. The difference between A Course in Miracles and any religion is it says in the Course, God has given you atonement as a gift at the very beginning, in the instant that you thought that something was that you felt the belief in separation. The atonement was a gift given. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to pray for it. You don't have to ask for it. It's already a given. I have to accept. The word "accept" is a big word. Am I willing to accept the gift?
Yeah, well said.
Beautiful.
Anything to add, Jackie? Because I really want to hear a song about this one.
Yeah, no, Dov and Cindy covered it. That's great.
God, why does God not know that we are in trouble or that we exist?
The ego loves to ask these kinds of questions. It gives us very much spiritual indigestion, 'cause we can't digest these lofty ideas, and trying to grasp them just exasperates our fears. So let it go. You don't need to know. Let yourself be. Take it lightheartedly. Don't try to understand Holy Spirit's plan. Just let God's love take you by the hand, one silly moment at a time. In this dream, you'll be led to a much more happier scene, where all these kinds of questions fall away.
Yay. It is my mother used to say towards the end of her life here, when people would say why, she would respond, I don't know where she got this from, but she would respond, "Why is a crooked letter? Do you really want to go down that path?" It always made me laugh. Like, why did you start saying this? She'd say, "Why is a crooked letter? Do you really want to go down that path?"
Good, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
So Selena, we'd love for you to feed us our next question here.
Okay, again, so many good ones. So here is one about illness. When I manifest an illness, can I try to heal the body without the guilt of once again substituting the love of God? Or is it more appropriate to simply just accept the illness? So
I call improv.
Yeah, that's, oh, okay.
I want to be, I'm sick. I really don't feel well. I have an illness, and I absolutely, resent that I'm being told that I gave it to myself when I actually caught COVID from my boyfriend. And it's his fault, first of all, because he went to a party without a mask. So, but I here now am sick, and I'm supposed to see this is not real, and I'm supposed to heal my own body. How do I do that? Mom, Dad.
Right. Well, I'll be mom, and I will comfort you, Tam, by saying, you know what, you didn't manifest any illness on this level. So you don't need to feel guilty about it. You don't need to feel mad about it, right? All the scripts were made at one time when we believed in the separation. That idea got projected out into billions and billions of fragments. And one of these fragments are that you're sick. And as we're practicing these lofty metaphysical concepts of the Course, it's absolutely a loving thing to do to take care of the body. Always, that would be a reflection of being in your right mind, being loving to the body simultaneously. It's always my big word. You're recognizing, right, where the sickness really is. We've chosen sickness as separation. We've chosen the teacher of separation. When that gets projected out onto the body, we experience what we call physical sickness. So it would be crazy not to address that. And as far as accepting the sickness, again, to the question, this could be answered, these questions could take a long time, but it's not that really the Course is asking you to accept it, like, oh, from a suffering perspective, oh, I just have to accept it. And this is right. What I usually do when I'm sick. So I was sick this morning, okay, before coming on here. And I was like, Sin texted me and said, how are you doing? I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really good by the grace of God. I was doing my forgiveness on sickness this morning. But just because we understand the metaphysical concepts doesn't mean that we don't use the magic here, right? We're so afraid of the power of our mind, right? That we've killed off God, that we can't possibly admit and are not at the level that we could just cure ourselves in the level of form. So we have to give that belief. We have to put healing belief in the aspirin in this or that, right? When you're truly in your right mind, you would be loving to the personal self, which would be addressing things here. Now, as far as having preferences and not wanting to be sick, certainly we don't. But I found, as I did this morning and last night, when I went back to the mind and said, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I'm releasing unconscious guilt. What am I holding on to? It's manifesting in this horrible gut issue, right? When I forgave myself and gave myself the permission to drink the water, to take the medicine, to do everything, I felt so much better because it was an act of love. Simultaneously, I knew where it was really coming from, right? So never feel bad about taking care of yourself on the level of form. That's what a reflection of choosing the love in your right mind would do.
I want to respond in two ways to that. First of all, I really did have COVID last week.
Oh my gosh.
I got it. And my partner had it the day before I did. So it was a point. But I did find it humorous that the first thing everyone asked me was not how I was feeling, but who gave it to you? And when I get a cold, where'd you get it? And all of the tracking of the blame and what germ you have and what kind of germ you have. And I had a dear friend who really was having horrible problems with insomnia. And she called me sobbing because she was with a meditation group who said, you need to meditate more. You need to find its source more. You need to go there. And the poor woman hadn't slept in days and days and was showing psychotic tendencies from not sleeping so long. And I just said, take a sleeping pill. Believe in that magic for the moment, and then you can go back to meditation. Because the spiritual bypass can really get in the way of true healing. And
absolutely,
if you take the magic, my mother was like, give me some magic. She went out on morphine, it helped to bring back the recognition of peace. So for me, I made the perceived mistake that 3 days before I got COVID, I said to a very close friend, things are moving so quickly in my life and I'm juggling so much that the only thing that can stop me now is COVID, and I welcome it. And she looked at me and she said, do you know what you just said? And I said, yes, I do. I'm not spiritually evolved enough to just tell everyone to go away. I can't do this or that and this that I have to do. And 3 days later, I got COVID. And I hate to admit this, but my partner and I had it together. And it was one of the most fun experiences I ever had. We had moaning competitions in the first couple of days where we felt horrible. I won. And we then we just got to binge watch TV that we never get to do because we're so busy. And people were bringing us food and leaving. And it was like, oh, that's why sickness can be gotten. But truly, I acknowledge that I was not at a place in my practice enough yet to go, what is this for? And can I do this without getting sick? So that's just a piece of it. When I realized what is this for, it was for me to just rest. Yeah. How do I do that for myself without pulling in the sickness to do it for me? So I have an excuse to everyone. I'm sick. I can't do this.
Yeah.
But really doing it that way to get yourself sick is the sickness. And so I just wanted to add that.
Love it. Love that story. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's so important to allow our process and allow ourselves to just breathe, just be sometimes, and not judge the sickness like as maybe as something bad. Like, in other words, you Tam and your partner were able to have moaning competitions or whatever. I mean, that it actually brings a playfulness to it, which comes back to that playfulness idea of that could really, that playfulness idea be applied to anything, if we're willing to just be and not try to feel like something's wrong that we have to always fix. Like, this is wrong, or this means there's something wrong with me. I have to fix it. I have to do this. I have to do that. But just be in the space of, okay, maybe I'm not feeling so well right now, but so what's next?
Dov has something to add.
Yeah.
Well, I was putting it on the chat, chapter 18, section 7. I need do nothing will save you a century of trying to fix things and meditating and doing all kinds of things to try and get rid of anything. Need do nothing.
Yeah. And also we get fully in the trap of sickness, and I've created it for myself. We've created this world of form. Look everywhere. There's war, there's anger, there's hatred. I did a lot of work in my 20s with children with catastrophic illness. And boy, so many of them were able to be happy and laugh while they had lymphoma or cancer of some kind, and even go to their perceived deaths with joy and laughter. This is what is. Oh, this is what life is. This is part of life. They didn't sit there blaming themselves for that sickness. We do not know what anything is for. We can still be in a place of spirit and a place of love and even a place of humor. And I'm just going to add this one other story here. Sorry, everyone, but I was in Nepal. I was in my early 20s. I was throwing up by the side of a road, sick to my stomach with dysentery, feeling horrible, and just absolutely puking, when someone tapped me with a stick and said, "Hey, how's the family?" in Nepali. I spoke Nepali. And I was really angry. It's like, don't you see I am throwing up on the side of the road here? How could you ask me cheerfully how the Nepali family that I'm staying with, how they were doing when I'm sick here? And I turned my head to look up at him, and there was a very old man. I mean, he could have been in his 30s because he didn't recall. He looked really old if he had a tough life, but really, no, he was an older man, and his eye was completely crusted over. He had a goiter this big coming out of his neck. He had only one leg and like a fake, like a limb, a tree limb coming out of the other leg from his knee down. And he was completely crippled over. And he had the light of love in his eyes and laughter. And I looked up with this anger, like, how could you? And when I saw this man, something in me cracked apart. It was like, oh my gosh, I got cranky when I have my period. I get upset when I have a headache. And looking at this man's joy of him not acknowledging me throwing up by the side of the road, I started to laugh. And the laughing while throwing up at the same time was my version of people asked me in my, 20s, why are you going to Nepal for enlightenment? That was my enlightenment. It wasn't with the Buddhist monks at the temples. It was at that moment with that man. So, and I will never forget that. So I just wanted to share that. And that is
Great
what
story.
in Miracles teaches us to do. So,
Boy, what a great reminder. In a way, taking the focus off of that moment for you. It sounds like that helped take the focus and shift it just a bit to sort of jerk you awake, like, wait, he's not acknowledging my sickness, but that brings your mind into a deeper awareness of, in a way that it can really help, again, that playful spirit come back a bit. And I think that's so important. I really do. And I also, Jackie and I have a very dear friend, Michael Tamara, who just passed away 2 days ago.
Yes.
Wonderful spiritual teacher. Talked about forgiveness. He was a clairvoyant and a medium. He was diagnosed the beginning of this year with acute AML, it's called. It's a progressive form of leukemia. But he also had heart issues. But this man was like, I just call him the laughing Buddha, because no matter, he kept going and laughing because he always had a playful spirit.
Always.
And the last interview he did was just maybe a couple weeks ago, and he was laughing through his story of a story sharing stories where one would normally might feel like upset about, or feel that, not that he didn't have his difficult moments, but he was just so delighted in sharing this rough story of cancer, and just laughed the whole way through the 2-hour interview. And he was a very good demonstration of that, of remembering who he really was. And that's what he taught too. He knew the world was an illusion. Doesn't mean we're not going to feel bad sometimes, or sick or ill. It's just that I feel like he was really demonstrating that we have a mind that we can choose, though, how we go through an experience. We do have that power, even if we're in bed all day or whatever. We can still say, well, look, I'm in bed all day, and you know what, I don't feel so well. In fact, I feel really crappy right now. But you know what? I am a mind. I'm not really this body. And what do I want to choose in this very moment? How do I want to see myself? And he just lived that. And I just thought he was a very powerful teacher. And to his very last breath, he was on a rowing machine, rowing his way, which he, and when you have leukemia, you don't have a lot of energy. And he's rowing away in joy. And he actually died of a heart attack, not the leukemia, because he had died 4 times prior to this latest heart attack that, quote, killed him. But he had experience with dying. And so one more thing here, he just said, yeah, this is how his personality was. Yeah, I died 4 times, and I've really discovered something interesting with death after dying 4 times. He says, I want to write a book, and I'm going to call it the Drop Dead Diet, because every time that I die, I always lose weight.
So funny. Well, the other, again, and something else came to mind, and I hope it's helpful to everyone. But my mother, when she was minutes away, well, really hours away from her passage, she was having a heart attack, and she was in a lot of pain, and she was screaming. And I've talked about this before, but I would get very empathic, and she suddenly saw me cringing or holding my breath as she was screaming. And she looked at me and she said, stop. My body is kicking me out because it knows I would never leave, and it's my time. Don't be mad at my body. Thank it, because it has brought me through this journey so beautifully. And truly, she shifted me so completely. And then when she was screaming, she said, I've never been in here more at peace in my entire life. And so when her body started convulsing again, instead of me going, oh, stop being mean to my mother, it was, thank you, body. And thank you for housing this beautiful woman. And thank you for putting up with her not paying attention to you for a good part of her life. And thank you for now being in the kind of contractions that were reversed from her giving birth, from her coming in through a contraction of birth. And these were contracting her so that she would be released, because otherwise she would have stayed and still been on her computer at this very moment. So it really gave me an understanding of, yet again, how many do we need? I know, but how we can be separate from our body going through something, and our body can be going through it to give us a lesson. If we say, what is this for? And people have said so many times, I've heard the story of, I'm so mad at my cancer, and then I asked what it was for, and it said to teach you or help you. And then the embrace with that, a lot of times the after effects were healing from cancer. So we know not. And that doesn't mean that that's a success story, because there is no death. If it brings you to, that kind of perceived death, that is that path. It's just what we project onto it is bad and guilt and suffering, and you gave it to yourself, and all those stories. That's what needs to be released into what is. So
nice.
I think we're ready for a good song about that one. Wait, but I want to ask you one thing, Scott. Are you in Hawaii?
Oh no, I'm at Namaste Village, Ajijic, Mexico.
Oh, you're in Mexico. That's what I meant. You're in Mexico. So I find it very funny that you have the Golden Gate Bridge behind you, and every time you get up, it looks like you're walking on water.
Yeah.
Aw.
It's really funny.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
right. When I can laugh while I throw up, I don't have to grow up. I have found a great new weight loss diet. Everyone should try it. It's really quite a riot. All it takes is that you die again and again, like our friend Michael Secura, who laughed while he was croaking. It's safe to be joking, even though sickness is a defense against the truth. Don't let it get to you, because your cancer could be here to help you let go of your fear. Everything is here to help you, my friend. So it's a godsend, whether it be COVID or cancer.
It was so great.
That was beautiful.
And we give
Amazing.
forgiveness opportunities to anyone out there who takes offense with our little twisted sense of humor here. We again, if you have someone who is dying of cancer, or your child has cancer, or you do, and it feels weighty and serious, we don't mean to offend in any way. We're just representing the course in this, and that's what it teaches.
Can I share a cancer story?
Go for it. Who doesn't
oh,
want to share a cancer story?
Yes. Well, this is just interesting because so many people suffer from it and they don't know what to do. And then, especially if you're a course student and you're thinking that you're not a body and all that, it can get really confusing. So, Cindy and me, our stepmother was diagnosed with breast cancer quite a while ago, maybe 2015, I think. And when Mark and I heard that at our dining room table, we're like, oh my gosh. She had just lost her son, our stepbrother, not long before that. And we thought, oh my gosh. So we're sitting at the dining room table, we're getting all wrapped up in, what do we do for her? What do we send her this book? Okay, she's probably going to do chemo, but oh my gosh, this integrative cancer book is so good. And Mark, maybe we can fly over there and do sound healing. La 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 la, So we were just going. And Mark got up and he went to the bathroom and he came back and he just had this look on his face. And I said, what? He said, well, when I went in there, I just asked in my mind, what would Jesus do? And the answer he got was, never underestimate the healing power of seeing someone as whole. So what we were doing was the opposite, trying to figure it, instead of joining first and seeing her as whole, as she really was. And then when we did that, the download came, the ping came of what to do next. And we gave her a book that was very helpful to her, and the rest follows. But the point was, we're often, putting the cart before the horse, or we're often forgetting just to ask to go back to the mind and say, oh my gosh, let me see this, how it truly is. It won't mean you don't address anything on the level of form, guys. You will. You'll just be coming from a different place in your mind, one that's further waking you up instead of furthering illusions. That's just the difference. Which teacher do you want to follow as I'm going through cancer and illness, breakup, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Our inner experience can be better based on the teacher that we choose in our mind.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. I know that Selena is just aching to ask.
Well, we are getting to the end almost. We're on the home stretch. But here is a question someone sent in. Someone who has studied A Course in Miracles for several years, and they say it's a profound text and the practice has helped me a great deal. However, I continue to have what seems to be a spiritual bypass issues around anger, and as it pertains to the suffering and injustice I see in the world. Something in me needs to be healed, I suspect. Can you comment? So anything that you want to act out or just share about injustices of the world and suffering?
Well, I guess I'll start, if I may. I know how tempting it is to react to the seeming injustices of the world. And I will always remember a line that I always like to say to myself when this happens, and I hope this is helpful for you. We always think that we understand what we perceive. We always think we really get it, but we're only getting a tiny, tiny piece of the picture that we're seeing before us. We don't see behind the scenes. In other words, of what's happening, what's being healed, what lessons people are learning, we don't see any of that. We only see an image. So what I love is in the preface of the course is Jesus says, when basically I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he says, when you see injustices in the world, what it really is a call for union, a call for love and union. And if it's our choice, if we decide to see it that way, we can make that choice to remember that. And because the ego always wants, right, to feel the injustice, because that's the only way it can maintain its existence. Because without it, the ego's done. It's finished. It's over. There's no more. That means you're acknowledging there's no world. If there's no you, there's no world, there's no ego, then there's only God. And that's what the ego fears, because that's what we attempted to escape from. So when you perceive an injustice out there, I'll put it on me. When I appear to see an injustice out there, or what looks like an injustice, I have to catch myself again, come back to catching myself when I'm doing that and go, oh yeah, I get to choose how I perceive this. And it's really everything that I see as an injustice is a call for union. It's another call for help, a call for love. And Jesus saw that when people were calling for love, didn't judge the call. We don't have to judge the call, or as the Holy Spirit doesn't judge the call, it just answers the call. And that's how Jesus healed too. And I like to remember that. It makes me feel good when I say, well, I can practice that. Maybe I won't be perfect at it. I don't have to be perfect at it right now in this moment, but at least I can start the process of just looking at that, of how I'm thinking about it, which can make all the difference in how I'm feeling in this moment. Again, a call for union. We're all crying for that to some degree, all of us in our own ways. And I think it's a very loving and compassionate thing to do, to understand that we're all fighting a hard battle here, as the Course says. Even if it's something that seems very tiny, very small and insignificant, the Course doesn't make a distinction between what seems like a tiny thing that's just a mild annoyance to something huge that we would consider really bad or really terrible. It says it's all the same. Then there's no order of difficulty in miracles. Now, yeah, we can accept that the Course says it's simple, but it's not always easy to practice it. But that's why we have the workbook. And what the workbook will do is just lead us to, when we're done with the workbook, then the real work begins. And we really can start even more applying that to our everyday lives and situations. But that's what I like to do when I feel like I see an injustice, is go, oh yeah, I gotta stop myself and go, wait, I can choose to see it that way, but that brings me pain when I see it that way. And do I want to choose pain, or do I want to choose joy? And so
it's the key. And
yeah.
I'd like to say, or to really caution, that people actually get to be news junkies, where it's an addiction to seeing the suffering in the world, and they can't turn off the TV, and they have to look at every moment, every atrocity out there. And take a look at that. Why are you doing that? Why are you so focused on the suffering of the world? The Course says we cannot fix the world. We can only ourselves first, and our perception of it. So the more you're attached to the suffering of the world, and I'm not saying don't look at the world and what's going on, and don't ever watch the news, or don't say, I don't want to hear about it. I'm saying, where can you choose peace first, so that you can bring that to the world? Because the world of form seems to really need that. And is you're worrying about it, and you're fearing it, and being upset and sympathetic and compassionate and all of those words about it, as helpful as truly walking the walk of love and bringing peace into it?
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think I would just add that one thing that helps me is I remember that what I see out there are images my mind has made. So if I'm battling in my mind and I have conflict in my mind, what gets projected out is conflict and images, and that includes wars, right? So again, I always like to bring it back to cause, and to Tam's point, great points, what is it that we want to see? We're kind of addicted to it. Well, the ego is addicted to separation, suffering, attack, guilt, and pain, right? And so sometimes I will just say to myself, it's funny, just images going by on the screen, I recognize, yep, those are the images my mind has made. And if I'm upset by them, I've already chosen the upset in my mind. I'm projecting it out. We're not responsible for what we see, right? But we're responsible for how we see it. And how we walk back the projection is one moment at a time, just choosing, yes, my eyes are seeing that, but my mind is interpreting that, of course, I'm going to see separation, attack, and guilt, and judgment, and blame. When I'm with the ego, when I'm with the Holy Spirit, I'm going to see, to Sin's point, a call for union, right? A call for togetherness, these steps, to Tam's point, what do I want to see? Do I want to see the love? Well, the form doesn't show you that, but the world is in your mind, and you can change your mind about the world, right? And use it as your classroom. That's a real gift.
Yeah, and I know Dov is writing in the chat, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And someone wrote, I am upset because I see a senseless world. All quotes from the course. And, the lesson 158, the script is written. Look at all of that. See what that really, really means. I want to bring this to a close and have Scott finish us off. But Dov, do you want to say something before that?
Yeah, I did have a cancer story. I had cancer 10 years ago, and a next door neighbor works for Sloan Kettering Cancer, one of the big hospitals for cancer in New York. And she said, David, you're strong. Fight it. You can fight this. Marianne Williamson was saying, I had cancer. Love your cancer. Love your cancer. And I didn't know which one to go. I happened to go out to Colorado, and I sat right down next to I can't think of his name, but the guy who wrote he channeled the book Journey Beyond Words, Haskell. Okay, so I said that, and he's an MD, a DO, and I said, what do you think? He says, I go with what Marianne says. So I said, okay, but what do you mean by love your cancer? It has nothing to do with loving the cancer. It means to accept all things exactly the way it is. And the head of oncology at Mount Sinai, where I was being treated, he says, yeah, the people who resist, who go into fear and contract, very difficult to treat. If you can simply accept, you become open, and the healing is done. I was literally healed in 2 months.
Beautiful, Dov.
Inspiring. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Very inspiring, Dov. Thank you for sharing that.
So, Scott, the state of the world.
First of all, thank you for coming to our little webinar. The purpose is to help you remember who you are. Whether a beginner that just opened up the course, we're here to learn to use power but not force, to love your cancer and love the war too, and love the people who've forgotten what is real. But we are teachers of God, opening our hearts, 'cause we are here to truly, truly heal and let the real blues. It's the ego's eyes you're looking through. Just see an opportunity to give your blessing. That's where the correction needs addressing. Thank you for you.
How beautiful. Thank you for each of you so much coming to do this. And if anybody is stuck in their own ego, stop for a moment and pick any of these forms of improv to realize that you're just part of the play and see how you can bring light to it and laughter instead. No matter what it is, find somewhere in there where spirit is playing with you so that you can play back with spirit. And with that, I'm handing this over to Selena to conclude. Thank you all so much for participating in this.
And can we acknowledge our incredible translator?
Yes, yes,
Yay!
thank you. Thank you, Vero,
Vero,
Absolutely.
thank you.
so much.
Yes.
Great, you're getting great feedback too. You're doing such a good job.
Selena, on you, honey.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'll give Jim, my partner, time to get the PowerPoint up. Oh, that last song made me tear up there. But anyway, we want to thank all of our guests for this discussion and also for our attendees for joining, as well as our team, the foundation staff, and our volunteers. We, of course, want to give our appreciation to all those who donate to the Let's Discuss webinar series. It's really your donations that keep these events coming. So thank you so much. Before we go, we have just a few announcements, including news about the next webinar topic we'll be holding for November. If you're here with us live, keep an eye on our group chat and we will post information there. First thing, Miracles Voices podcast. We want to make sure you know about this weekly Miracles Voices, co-hosted by Matt McCabe and Tam Morgan. Here, students share reflections on how A Course in Miracles has shifted their outlook and fostered healing through forgiveness. So you can check it out at miraclevoices.org. Next month, stay tuned for our November webinar. The Foundation for Inner Peace will hold the next Let's Discuss session on Thursday, November 16th. We're really excited about an international group of young people in their 20s and 30s who will be coming together to talk about A Course in Miracles and how they apply the principles in their lives. So you'll want to join that. If you subscribe to our foundation announcements and letters, you'll be emailed soon. So additionally, you can always check out our website's event page at acim.org/events. So we've created a short survey that will display on your browser when the session ends. So please give us your feedback for today's session. With love and gratitude, thank you for being here again, and we look forward to having you next time. Bye-bye.